Today we will learn how to create a weaving on a cardboard loom. Today you will need a cardboard loom, some yarn, a blue plastic needle, and some masking tape. On the back of your loom, tape the end of the yarn near one of the corners and rub it in so it stays in place. Next, turn your loom over to the front and make sure the yarn is going through that first notch. Bring the yarn down to the bottom like you're going across the street. Then go to the next notch next door. Keeping all of the yarn on the front of the loom, continue repeating these steps. Go across the street, go next door. Go across the street, and then next door. Remember to keep all of the yarn on the front of the loom. I like to hold my loom in one hand and then hold my yarn in the other hand. I'm going to continue these steps going across the street and then next door. Across the street and then next door until I reach the end of the loom. This part of our weaving is called the warp string. They are vertical lines going up and down my loom. Once my yarn has gone around that last notch, I'm going to turn my loom over to the front and add a piece of tape and rub it in so it stays in place. Now I have a new color of yarn for my weft string. I find the end and place it on the needle. Then I unravel my bundle of yarn and find the other end. I'm going to hold both ends of the yarn in one hand. I like to call these the tails. Then with my other hand, I'm going to hold the needle and pull it down a really long ways so that both of my tails are the same length. Hold your needle and begin going under, over, a few of the warp strings. Then pull your needle through and grab hold of it again and continue that pattern. Under, over, until you've gone all the way across. This row you're creating is called your weft. You're going to pull that string of your weft until there's a little bit of tail hanging off of the end. The second row of your weft string is going to look the opposite of the way the first row did. So every spot that has under, you're going to go over this time, and vice versa. Every spot that has over, you're going to go under. As I pull my weft across the loom, I want to make sure that I pull it really carefully and I check that my pattern is the opposite of the way it was on the first row. I like to hold my finger on the string when I pull it with the other hand so that it doesn't tug on my warp strings. Okay, watch what happens if I accidentally do the same pattern as my previous row. Look, every time I went under, I did under again. So this actually means that all of my work that I just did is going to undo itself. Oh no. Okay, let's try this again. Over here, I started with under, so I'm going to start with over this time. I need to make sure it's opposite of my first row. Then, when I get to the end, I'm going to gently pull it through. Okay, this looks pretty good, but what if I tug it a little too hard? Oh no, that doesn't look good. All right, let's straighten it out so my rows are really nice and even and my warp strings stay vertical. On my previous row, I started with over. Now I need to start with under so it's the opposite of my last row. I'm going to carefully continue this pattern so it's opposite of the previous row and pull it through gently, being careful not to tug on my warp strings. Then I push my rows so they're close together, really nice and neat. I don't have enough red string here to make it across and have a tail, so I need to cut off my string soon. This part is tricky. I'm going to weave only a couple of times and then tuck the rest of my string behind the warp strings. That way the tail will be hidden and not hanging out the side of my weaving. Now I can cut it and tuck it underneath. Now I'm ready for a new color. The same way I did before, I'm going to put my yarn on my needle, hold both ends of the yarn, then pull the needle until both tails are the same length. Now I'm going to find that hidden spot where I left off before. I see here I have 2 unders, so I'm going to go under that warp string, those gray ones, and then continue as if I was still doing that same string. So just continuing the pattern I left off, over, under, pull it through, and my orange tail is going to be hidden behind those red strings. As I continue to weave, this will mix in and you won't notice the discrepancy. I'm going to continue this same pattern just like I did before. Every time I finish a row, I pull it really carefully so it's not too tight. And every time I start a new row, it's going to be opposite of the way I did before. I'm going to continue these steps until I run out of yarn and go all the way up to the top of the loom. Just make sure when you pull each row not to pull too tight. Make sure they're really nice and neat all the way through. You have plenty of time to work on this. Have fun, you guys.